Hey everyone, what's going on? Thanks for tuning in to Relevant Jukebox, and today we're going to talk about the new Fiona Apple album, Fetch the Bolt Cutters. The famed singer-songwriter is back with her 5th studio album, and it has been quite the gap of time since she released her last album, The Idler Wheel, in 2012, which over the years has been celebrated by music fans and critics alike for its fantastic songwriting, but also the deep emotional connection that record had with her fan base. And me as well. So needless to say, my expectations were really high going into a new album. The production and recording on Bolt Cutters is pretty interesting and I think sounds a bit punchier than on past releases, as Fiona seems to find a bit more space surrounding the emptiness in a lot of the instrumentals and putting a little bit more reverb on her voice at times, which does add a pretty cool effect because this record sounds like you're listening to it in a dark broom closet by yourself with Fiona performing it for you, which apparently this record was all recorded in her house and she actually used random objects around to kind of make some of these sounds, which is really cool. And Fiona's vocals are also very present and winding on here as usual, and there's still this sort of like whimsical feeling that's woven into her music, kind of like you're watching a hand-drawn cartoon or something, but it's not really as like flamboyant on Bolt Cutters. The tone of the record overall is a little different. It feels a bit more empowered and energized overall with this snappy, kind of like frustrated attitude behind it. I thought there was a pretty strong start to the record with the track I Want to Love You More. I love the way that the pianos ring through on this cut. They sound really warm and rich and robust, kind of like they've been pulled off of like a Vince Guaraldi record or something. I love just about everything about this track except for the chorus and the way that she draws out singing you like way too long and way too frequently, which I think is meant to just enhance that bitter feeling that she has towards this guy she's talking about, how she wants to love him. Obviously, I'm not quite sure, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it sounds good. It just kind of comes off awkward to me. The title track, however, was a pretty big standout on here, I thought. I love how dusty and playful the instrumentation comes off on this track, and she even adds in a little bit of touch at the end with her dogs coming into the track and barking, which is kind of funny. But also the hook is really interesting. It kind of comes off lazy sounding the way that she delivers it, but it's like super catchy. There's also a nice run of highlights right in the middle of the record with the tracks Ladies, Heavy Balloon, and Cosmonauts. I love the way that the track Heavy Balloon opens up with its really booming drums, and about 30 seconds in or so there's this nice guitar line that weaves itself in that complements the instrumental really well, and it almost sounds like something that Bonobo would sample off of his early records. And Cosmonauts is a really beautiful ballad about being entangled with a lover, and there's some really cool imagery that she casts out in her lyrics on here, talking about floating up into space like 2 cosmonauts. It's really touching, actually. And another track that ended up sticking out on here was the song Rack of His. There's a strange but memorable melody that's on this track that I can't really get out of my head, and it gives off this pretty uneasy feeling, which would kind of make sense because it would reinforce the feelings that she's talking about in her lyrics about how her lover has left and she's still all in. Now, those were just some of my favorite tracks on this record, but there are a lot of highlights on it. But I will say, at times, this record can kind of feel a little long-winded. There is just one reoccurring regal piano line after another on here that kind of makes some of these tracks pale in comparison to others. And I will say, I do prefer her vocal performances overall on Idler Wheel. And that's not to say that they're not good on this record, because they definitely are. I just kind of prefer her more subdued delivery style, even though I do appreciate on here that she comes off a lot more unhinged. Also, in this style of music, and Fiona's writing style specifically, puts the themes and the lyrics on like a pedestal to the point where you can't really not pay attention to what she's talking about on a lot of these tracks, and I can't really honestly say that I find a lot of it to be relatable to me. I think Bolt Cutters overall serves as another example that Fiona Apple is just really, really good at conveying her emotions and her experiences through her music, and being able to translate that clearly to the listener. Overall, it just ends up enhancing my enjoyment of this album and the tracks that I thought were highlights. But I do think it's interesting, after leaving this record, I I can totally see how this is a 10 for some people. It just wasn't a 10 for me. And with that being said, I'm feeling an 8.5 over here on Fetch the Bolt Cutters. So I have links down below to Fiona Apple's web store. There is a vinyl pressing up for sale. I've already grabbed it. I would suggest scooping this if you have the means to. And if you've already listened to Fetch the Bolt Cutters, which I'm sure that you have, what did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, thank you for watching. If you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you drop a like down below and share. And if you want more content from me, hit that subscribe button. Peace.